Welcome to our podcast, where we talk about the interesting, frustrating, and inspiring experiences we have as people with strongly held religious views working in corporate IT. We're not here to preach or teach you our religion. We're here to explore ways we make our career as IT professionals mesh, or at least not conflict, with our religious life. This is Technically Religious. Did you ever wonder why IT diagrams always use a cloud to show an element where stuff goes in and comes out, but we're not 100% sure what happens inside? That was originally called a TAMO cloud, which stood for Then a Miracle Occurred. It indicated an area of tech that was inscrutable, but nevertheless something we saw as reliable and consistent in its output. For IT pros who hold a strong religious, ethical, or moral point of view, our journey has had its own sort of TAMO cloud, where grounded technology and lofty philosophical ideals blend in ways that can be anything from challenging to uplifting to humbling. In this series, we sit down with members of the IT community to explore their journeys, both technical and theological, and see what lessons we can glean from where they've been, where they are today, and where they see themselves in the future. My name is Leon Adato, and the other voice you'll hear on this episode is a frequent contributor to Technically Religious and a friend of mine for 30 years, Doug Johnson.
We are so old.
We are so old.
Very old.
Before this podcast started, we realized that there may be close to 100 years of experience on this particular episode, and there's just two of us on the line.
Man, I'll tell you. Been at this for a little while, yes, indeed.
Yeah,
and this wasn't my first career, so really, think about that.
It's really, we're like Methuselah. Put us in a jar. Okay, so as we are wont to do here on Technically Religious, we're going to start off with shameless self-promotion. Doug, tell us a little bit about what you're working on, any special projects, how people can find you on social media, and required is your religious, ethical, or moral point of view.
Okay, basically there's two technically speaking things that I work on. I work for a company called Southwestern Health Resources, which is an accountable care organization, health kind of stuff down here in Dallas, Texas. Mm-hmm. When they sold this to me a year ago, remember I was working on my own, so I really wasn't looking for a job, but this cool thing came up that put all of my background together, and I thought, oh, that's cool. And they said, well, this is a startup. Now, keep in mind that this startup was peeled off from the two big 800-pound health gorillas, thousands and thousands of employees in Texas. So this startup that I've been part of for a year has 800 employees, $2 billion in revenue, plus, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what I thought of when we said startup, but there we are. So I am the web developer for the marketing department. And if you're a technical person, you know how most technical people feel about marketing departments. So the fact that I'm the only technical person in the marketing department should tell you a little something there. But it's kind of fun. Their expectations are really low, so I exceed them all the time, and it works out really well for me. My side gig, the one that's going to go ahead and make me a multi-billion, million, 100,000-aire maybe if we're lucky.
You'll be able to buy coffee.
I'm hoping. So far it's cost a lot of money, but basically we do inventory management for small to medium-sized healthcare offices, primarily optical at this particular point, using radio frequency identification. And I am the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer. I supposedly know everything that I'm doing. I've designed it. It's working well. We've been breaking even for almost a year, and we actually expect to make a profit this year until we then hire an employee, and then we'll go back in the red again.
It's all going to go right. It all goes down the tube.
So that one is waverfid.net. So if you have an optical shop and really actually want to control your inventory, go there.
Awesome. And your religious point of view.
Religious point of view, I am a born-again evangelical Christian, but not one of those weird ones. I don't know, there are evangelical Christians who basically will smack you over the head with a really heavy Bible until you give up. I'm more one of the ones that thinks that we should talk about it, and if you come to it, that's great. Yeah. I was going
to say, Doug is one of the weird ones. For those people,
I am one of the weird ones, but not necessarily in the way that you expect me to be weird.
An evangelical Christian.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So there you are. So that's my. I mean, I've read the Bible multiple times. I do know what I'm talking about. But by the same token, I respect I respect your right to choose the wrong choice.
I was waiting to get around to that.
You
I
just
knew
well,
somewhere along the way it was.
I keep on going with the I could be wrong. I don't think I am. If I'm wrong, oh well. I'll deal with it when the time comes. And by this, by the same token, I'm going to try and convince you that this is the right way to go.
Right. You might be wrong, but you gave it your best shot.
Yeah,
Point.
it has certainly worked for me over the years.
A for enthusiasm. Okay, so Tales from the TAMO Cloud is structured in a particular way where we talk about your journey first through tech and then through religion. So I want to talk about where you're at now. I mean, you gave us a taster, an amuse-bouche, perhaps, of where you're at technically. But in terms of the day-to-day work that you do, what are you doing today?
The stuff that I'm doing today is actually well below my technical capabilities, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I in my day job, I am doing web development. I was just on Friday given the requirement to go ahead and reskin one of our sites in WordPress in 2 weeks, which most people wouldn't be able to do, and certainly none of the people we normally hire at ridiculously high rates would be able to do. But they also know that I'm going to be able to pull it off. So.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, technically speaking, I'm supposed to have it done in a week so that they can go ahead and get the content over. So having actually worked with a couple of our vendors for months not to get this to happen, I get to do it in a week. So, it'll work out okay. On the Wave RFID side, I am the CTO. I don't actually do the programming. We got a great team of people in India who are actually doing all the work. We're working in a stack that I understand, so they can't get too far out from underneath me. Well,
Right.
sometimes people who are, they don't know the technical stack, and anything can happen at that particular point. I could, in essence, dump them at any point and take it over. But God, why would I want to? These guys are great. I've known them for years. They're doing a good job. It's a Laravel/PHP/React stack. It's working great. Clients are happy. They don't care how we do it, and so that one is more advisory than anything else. I do the design. I make sure that it will go ahead and scale as we grow to thousands of clients instead of tens of clients. And that's
Okay.
that's my day to day.
Well, and I'm going to, having known you for a while, I'm also going to sort of fill in some of the blanks there, which is that for as long as I've known you, you've always been one of the best examples of an architect level developer, meaning you're the big idea guy. You're the one who sees that we're going to, this is the goal we're going for, the end result that we're going for. And here's how we're going to get there. The stack, the code, the whatever. You'll pseudo code out what needs to be done. You'll talk about the flow. And if somebody gets sick or wins the lottery and buys an island and disappears, you can take over for them, but you don't wanna. Because you don't really want to be a code monkey day after day after day. You want to, jump in, solve the really hard problems, or point the way to solving the hard problems and go on. But you certainly could if you needed to.
Yeah, and that's pretty much that would be accurate. I mean, yeah. And just for those people who are wondering, gee, I wonder if I should go into tech someday and all that kind of stuff, I'm completely self-taught.
Yes.
Right? I don't have a CS degree. In fact, there's a couple jobs that I wanted along the way that I lost because I couldn't do an algorithm on a whiteboard. It just, no, I'm serious.
I know you're serious.
I flew out to freaking Seattle. I talked with the CTO of the company and he was happy with me. And then the guy who was going to be my boss threw this linked list thing at me. And I was like, I know how to do what you're talking about, but I don't know how to do that. I mean, I was just,
right?
and I lost, I didn't get the job as a tech evangelist who doesn't actually have to write code because I couldn't do a linked list thing.
Yeah.
Do I sound bitter?
Not even a little. My response in those situations is frequently, is this something that your employees do often?
Right. Well,
Like
and that's
you do code on a board without anything? Like, is that how development is done here?
well, yeah. Unfortunately, this was early enough in a job change that
Uh-huh.
I would at this point, if they had said if he had said, I need you to do a linked list thing, I would go, I don't do that. That's what I would
Mm-hmm.
do now. Because now, having been in that situation, I'm going, nope, I don't have a CS degree. I know what linked lists are. I've taught it, but it was 30 years ago. So I don't know. I don't do that anymore. If
Right.
that's not good enough, I'll just go home. Fine.
Right. Right.
But
Exactly. Okay.
but I'm old
So,
and cranky now, so
right. Exactly. So you've earned the ability to be blunt a little bit.
yes.
Listen, Sonny. So, but you hit upon where we're going next, which is that you are self-taught. You didn't uh, depart the womb already knowing how to code with a silver keyboard in your mouth.
Yep.
So where did you start out?
Technically, I started out in college. I went to college where they invented BASIC, and so you could, in fact, they encouraged all departments to do stuff with the computer because we were kind of big on that whole thing. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the one of the inventors of BASIC became the president of my college, and his signature is on my diploma. So,
Got it.
so basically, you could go down to the computer center or to a couple different places around campus, put in your college ID number, no password, mind you, and just put it in, and then you'd be on, and you could do BASIC on a teletype. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I did various and sundry different things. We would all do. English classes would have you do something on the computer, blah blah blah. But in physics class, the first real indicator that I was going to do something interestingly weird with this, I was trying to go ahead and do this, make something orbit around a planet,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden on the teletype there were dots everywhere. I mean, just asterisks. Because
It was
remember, this
full of
is
stars.
it's little asterisks everywhere, and I went, okay, that's interesting. Saved it. Went off. Went to a different building where they had a plotter,
Mm-hmm.
and I went ahead and did the 150 baud modem with the phone to go ahead and get it to
Uh-huh.
connect, and it did this really interesting loopy thing. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And so what had happened was I had actually divided incorrectly in my program.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ended up happening was I had negated the effect of gravity on orbits. So by going ahead and doing different numbers with this kind of stuff, I got these really cool loopy things. And remember, this is early 70s when this stuff was considered to be cool.
Uh-huh. Right.
You wouldn't even think about it now. You'd go, "What are you, just a freaking idiot?" But at the time, no, it's like, and so I now have on my college degree, not on the degree, but on my resume, it basically, I have a citation in physics for a modified gravitational model of a on a computer. I forget exactly what the words are, but it is a citation in physics. Keeping in mind, I got a C plus in physics because I really wasn't that great at it.
Right. Right.
So
But
I knew if a computer mistake can do this for me, this was probably a field for me someday.
there you go. Okay,
But
so that was your humble beginnings.
yes,
Your humble
but then I
beginnings was
became
a
a disc jockey.
citation in physics.
I know, really. Yes, except that I realized that. Remember, I wasn't a science guy. I mean, I was thinking about pre-med until I got to biology and realized that wasn't going to work. And so eventually, I got my degree in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I was a disc jockey. They would pay you to sit there and actually tell people what time it was and what song you had just played. And so that's what I kind of did for the next 10 years.
Right. Right. And actually, for those people who were wondering, he was the number one. Was it not?
Midday.
Wasn't drive time? Yeah.
Midday. Yeah.
Number one midday jockey up against 105 in in the Cleveland market.
Yes,
So
for at least one or two books, I forget. I'm sure Matt the Cat hated me for it, but that's just the way it is. So I beat
Yeah.
him. I beat you, Matt.
there we go.
All right.
Claim
But
yet another claim to fame.
right, so did that. Just stopped doing drugs. Got married. Worked for the phone company for 12 weeks, 9 weeks training, 3 weeks on the job. Went, okay, this ain't gonna work. And then I was with Eastern singing telegrams for a whole year. That was a good job. And then I got a job selling computers. So here we are at the end of when did the Lisa come out? 82 or 81? It was the
I know.
October before the Lisa came out.
Okay.
Because I know that because I did the Apple Lisa rollout training. I'm one of the few people that's ever seen a Lisa, let alone a room full of them. So basically, at that point, I was selling computers, and did rather well at it. I had a knack for it, as it turned out, and we were off and rolling. So somewhere along the line, we started, instead of being just an Apple shop, we picked up IBMs. And the way I'd been selling Apples all along was people would come in and they would say, I need to be able to do a mailing list. And so I would show them on the Apple how they could go ahead and set up using Profile to do this thing and put all their names in. And they would say, well, I'm looking at the IBM. I said, well, okay, that's good. I have just shown you on the computer how I can do this. I would need you should probably go back to the IBM guy and have the IBM salesman show you how they're going to do that. Now, at the time on the IBM, the only real database for doing that was a thing called DBase. Wonderful little database program. And when you type DBase at the prompt, a dot would appear. That's all.
That's what you got.
And most salespeople would never show you anything on the IBM because they didn't know how it worked. Now, we decided to carry, and then they would come back to me and buy the Apple because it made sense.
Because they could do things. Right.
Exactly. Well, easily without being, a computer programmer. So basically, when my company decided to sell IBMs, I said, nobody is going to do that to me. I went in, learned DBase. Oh, sweet. Okay, I learned how to do my example so I could do it for anybody I was selling to. But I found out, gosh, I can do this. I can handle, this is programming. I can do this. And it was difficult because it was really early on. But the answer is, I just found out I had a knack for it. And went out, I was a DBase expert, and a Fox Pro expert. And, I would just keep on learning new stuff as we went along. And I keep on learning new things. And .NET and Delphi and C and C# and keep on going. It's just like and then I got into PHP and Drupal and WordPress and come on, it's just like whatever would essentially go ahead and allow me to continue to pay the bills and have a good time doing it. I would just keep learning it, and as long as you keep on learning in this wonderful world of technology, you're okay. It's when you decide you know as much as you need to know, unless it's COBOL, in which case you can keep on working until you die. But come on, there's a lot of COBOL calls still out there, baby.
There's still a lot of COBOL. There's a lot of support stuff. I remember meeting a guy who was in his mid-20s, and he decided to really get good at COBOL. And I'm like, okay. And he just pointed around the bullpen where they were all sitting, and he's like, look around me. They're gonna die soon.
Yep, and he's absolutely correct. They say most banking code still runs on COBOL. Yeah. So I've read COBOL. I've never actually written any useful COBOL code. So that's one of the few languages I can't claim that I've been paid to write.
There you go. All right, and that covers the.
So that's how I got here.
That covers how you got from there to here. So that's, that's a journey. And I think one of the lessons this is something you told me a while ago, is that somebody who's new on the market can probably use the latest tools and use them competently, and probably will work for cheaper than someone like us at our point in life. But what we bring to the table is that we know what came before it and probably what came before that. So we know why the current version works the way it does.
Yep.
And how to get around all the hidden bugs. And I remember specifically, I was working with Tivoli at the time, and I was trying to, at the time they had just created one of their GUIs, and I was putting containers, nesting containers. And every time I would nest something inside of something inside of something inside of something, the entire database would corrupt. And I was complaining to you, as I am wont to do often, and you said, well, yeah, because it's a Corbett database. And I don't, banana hamster? What are we talking? Why? Is it? No, you don't understand. Corbett databases are one of the first object-oriented database structures ever, and they only handle 3 levels of containership. After that, the database corrupts. You literally did what it can't do. And I'm like, okay, but who would know that? coming at it
Yep.
new.
Exactly. And the flip side to that, though, and again, this is advice. I've had all kinds of people saying, well, I'd like to get into tech, but it's way too late. And I'm going, no, you are exactly 2 years behind the cutting edge. So if you pick out whatever's cutting edge now, in 2 years, you'll be the expert. And people down the road will be saying, I don't know how to do this. So, it's like you're never too late in our industry to jump in. You just have to, you don't want to start with something that's so freaking old that you're battling against everybody like me who's been doing this forever. You want to be battling on the front lines and learning it. And then in 2 years, yes, it'll take you a little while for the cutting edge to move back. But if you pick the right cutting edge, you will be the expert in 2 years and making the money you want to make.
So what you're saying is that Moore's law may not be true until the the sun dies because of heat death, but it will in terms of chips, but it will be true in terms of getting a career in IT. That Moore's law will.
Surprisingly, Moore's law actually keeps on. It should have died years ago, and yet it keeps on rolling.
Right. And once again, if you're old like us, you know what we're talking about when we talk about Moore's Law. Okay. I want to pivot. We talked about tech. Now let's pivot to the religious side.
Okay.
I know that labels are difficult and often incredibly imprecise. And most of the time on these TAMO episodes, when I say, so what are you, religiously, the answer begins with, well, and it ends several minutes later when many, many, many qualifications have been given to an answer. That being said, how do you, besides, evangelical Christian, but not one of the weird ones, how do you define yourself religiously?
Basically, I believe the Bible to be the Word of God. I believe that Christ is the Messiah, that He is my Savior, that He died for my sins, and there's nothing that I can do to make myself worthy in the eyes of God, other than to say Christ said I'm okay. I trust in Christ. Therefore, if Christ is your son, God, and you think He's okay, then could you maybe think I'm okay too? That's pretty much it. I mean, that's it's the base it is the basis of real Christianity. There's a really good book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity that I recommend to people all the time. It's a little more philosophical than most people are willing to slog their way through, although it was a series of radio interviews, for God's sake. So it's good reading, but it basically covers the basis of what Christianity is. And I really have not gotten much beyond the basics, because it's when you get off in all the weird, differences that Christians tend to go ahead and get in trouble with each other. If you stay with the mainstream stuff, for the most part, we agree. So I try and stay pretty central.
There we go. Okay. And you mentioned the whole born again thing several minutes ago.
Yep.
But I wanted that was not the family, that was not the household into which you were born.
No.
So where did you start?
It works the same as my technical journey, surprisingly. When I went to, we went to church every Sunday, blah, blah, blah. We would be yelling at each other on the way to church because we were late, and we would be yelling at each other on the way home from church because we weren't respectful enough in church. So, you get a good solid feel for how great church is in that sort of situation. But
big motivation to go every week. Like you look forward to it.
But by the same time, I went to youth group and all that kind of stuff. I was one of the 3 people who did stuff on the senior sermon day, when I was a senior in college. But just for the integrity purpose, there was a statement of faith that we were supposed to make at some point along the way. Not confirmation. It was like a confirmation thing, and I specifically did not actually say some of the words in the statement that we were supposedly standing up and making. So I was a little bit of a reactionary there. So I went to college again. At college was where I first got my first introduction to computers. Well, in college, that's where I first went and said, you know what, this is garbage. And
Mm-hmm.
I can actually remember some Christians coming to dorm room, going ahead and, trying, laying out the whole Christian thing. And I knew the Bible better than they did, and basically shot down all of their arguments. And I hope, I pray to God that I did not ruin their, because I will feel really bad if I was able to go ahead and push them off of
Knock
their
somebody
path.
else off the, yeah.
Exactly.
So just to hold that thought for a second. First of all, just a point of order for people listening: never ever get into a religious argument with somebody who's in the philosophy department. That's really not. That's not the part of the dorm you want. Like if there's a philosophy wing to the dorm, which God help them if they really did that. But if if they say, so what's your major? Philosophy. Thanks. Great talking to you. Bye. Just go. Just go. And second of all, I heard from actually one of the other folks that we talk with a lot, Josh Bigley, who said that the missionaries, they send people out on mission work, not to try to change anybody else's mind, but to try to deepen the faith of the people who are doing the mission, because being told no repeatedly and aggressively causes you to dig in harder into your own point of view. So they do it because they want that reaction. So you probably helped many people develop a stronger tie to their faith. I'm working really hard to make this okay for you.
Well, in the end, and again, based on what I believe, as I stand before the throne and get told, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant," I have a feeling that he's going to say, "Oh, and Doug, I got a little conversation with you, okay?" Right. Let me finish with these people, and then you and I were going to talk just a little long. So we'll see how that all works out. But so basically, I managed to get through college with what I would consider to be a somewhat hedonistic philosophy that basically said, if it's not hurting anybody, it can't be all bad.
Okay.
Right? And I lived that out. I was a philosophy major. I truly lived that out. I was a disc jockey after that. Everything bad that you've ever told your daughters to avoid, I was that thing.
Right. You were that boy.
I was that boy. I was the poster boy for who you shouldn't have your daughter bring home. And, went through that whole thing, blah, blah, blah. Graduated from, got out of college, was a disc jockey, did all kinds of things for about 10-ish years or so. And then I was a disc jockey in Cleveland, and then got invited to a business meeting. We've all heard of Amway. So, it sounded interesting. Went blah, blah, blah. Did that for a while. Went to a big meeting on the weekend. They had a religious service on Sunday morning, and they did an altar call. And I said, "Okay, God, here's your shot." Don't laugh. I mean, it really is. I know. I don't. Exactly. So I said, "Fine, I will go forward. Here you go." And it was one of those, God figured he had his one shot, hit me with a 2x4, tears, blah, 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 the whole thing. And, it stuck. Okay. So, when they say born again, not everybody, I don't think you have to have a dramatic, a dramatic change in your life. I did. It probably is the only thing that would have gotten my attention. So I did I started studying the Bible, doing all kinds of things. Next thing you know, somebody's at the door. "Hey, would you like to study the Bible?" I went, "Sure, come on in." I think these Jehovah's Witnesses had never actually had anybody really invite them in before. Now, of course, I didn't know much about the Jehovah's Witnesses at that point because I hadn't been saved that long. But so we're going through it, and we're studying on a weekly basis. And in fact, one of the fun things was there was an Easter service that we went to that they called you up to the front to take communion. Well, I didn't know you're supposed to be one of the 180,000 saved people to go up, so I went up. Well,
yeah. Wait, this isn't snacks?
No,
I was hungry.
Exactly. It was like that. I was told later that I shouldn't have done that, but it was okay. I wasn't going to go to hell. But then it got weirder and weirder as time went on. And so I made the mistake of reading to the end of the book. and now we're back to the philosophy major thing.
Yeah. Right.
And so they came in the next time and I said, you don't actually believe that Jesus is God, do you? And they went, well, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, but this is a yes/no question. And so that was the end of me with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And when we went to another church, we went one Sunday morning, and the place where you sign your name, and we just lived across the way. And I said, "Lamb in search of a shepherd." And next day, pastor says, "How could I not come to your door after that?" So and so I was discipled there, and as time has gone on, I've learned more and been discipled by different people and irritated multiple denominations, but have worked well.
That's incredibly on brand for you. So
Well, it is. I mean, it's been fun. Even when I've been wrong, I've been right. There was a time when I was teaching a Sunday school class, and this is when I was traveling 45 minutes to a church that was having some trouble. We had moved, and so I ended up running late. It's just because it was a long drive, and as I'm going into my Sunday school, getting set to teach my Sunday school class a little bit late, the elder pulls me and said, "That is irresponsible for you to be late, blah, 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 blah." I said, "I've got a class to teach. We'll talk about this later." Went in, taught my class, went home, searched scripture, sent him a thing and said, "I searched the Bible. The only time I ever saw somebody arriving late was when Samuel arrived late, and Saul went ahead and did the sacrifice ahead of time because he wasn't willing to wait." And the elder apologized to me. So I knew we were okay.
There you go.
So,
all right.
And so over a period of time, I've been church. God help them. I've been deacon in a church or two. I mean,
what
can you
were they
imagine?
Thinking?
I don't know.
What?
I've been worship leader. Oh, I can remember once as worship leader, I was there, and I was leading a song, but I lost the melody. And so the organist go ahead and really knocked out the melody. And I said, here I am in front of the whole church going, "I rely on the kindness of strangers." Thank you, Blanche Dubois.
Right. Right.
So that's been my journey.
Amazing. Both the technical and the religious journey has been epic in many ways. I think what's interesting about that is that given both the variety and also the duration of it, and yeah, I did just call you old.
I'm not old, I'm durable.
Right, durable, experienced, seasoned, like an old cast iron pot. So I think that the number of times that the opportunity to blend these two very compelling, very consuming parts of our lives together, becomes equally memorable. So both on the good and the bad. Let's start off with the challenging part. Have there ever been times when blending your religious life observances and your technical obligations or life has created a particular challenge for you, and how did you overcome it?
Yes. I mean, it pretty much has to be a conflict, or
right.
What? If you don't have conflict, where's the story? Come on now.
Right.
Yeah. I always tell people when they had a really bad vacation, they went, "Hey, you got good story." Nobody wants to hear what a wonderful time you had. They want to hear everything that went wrong. So, but I can, right. I mean, I can remember that I had a consulting firm for a long time where I was doing accounting software, and I can remember a couple different occasions where I ran into when in one place I went. I need to have some inventory disappear. Can you make that happen?
Okay.
And I'm going, I don't think we need to work together anymore. That's that is just like, I mean, could I have done it? Absolutely. I mean, I knew the accounting software well enough that I could have made that happen. But in fact, I was actually played by somebody once. He thought anyway. A friend of mine had a company. He had a guy who was managing his company. So I got in there, and the guy said he'd done a bunch of test test transactions, and could I get the just test transactions needed to get them off. And so I did move them off, but I moved them off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out the guy was embezzling.
Right.
They weren't test transactions, they were real transactions. And so I got to be an expert witness in his trial. By the way, if you ever want to know how boring your life is, be an expert witness. I could see the people nodding off as I'm describing accounting software.
Yeah, be an expert witness in a in a computer accounting fraud thing.
Oh,
yes.
gee, yeah, exactly. It was bad, but it was that was a case where I was played, but of course, I covered for it, so I was able to actually, the guy went to jail and he should have, so just the way it was. I can remember being in another place where looking at his stuff. There was no way that he could afford the boat that he had a picture on the wall of, based on what I was seeing here. So only thing I could figure out was he was laundering funds somewhere. It was the kind of business that would have been good for that.
Uh-huh.
So I let that's again a case where I went, I think I need to let this client go. So
there you go. Okay. So that's sort of the challenging side. On the good side, has there ever been a situation where the blend of technology and religion has really turned into something surprising and kind of delightful?
It's sort of a yes and a no. I mean, the nice thing about being able to do what I do is that I'm able to go ahead and help out non-technical organizations with technical stuff that they should have. So there's been things that I've been able to do for various and sundry different organizations that I've been involved with. Keeping in mind that I actually made an active choice not to do religious or church software relatively early on, because I knew that if I did it to make my living, I would end up hating my brothers and sisters in Christ. Right. As a volunteer, it was okay, but if I had to make my living that way, there was just no way that was going to go ahead and work.
I know a dozen people who love to cook and decided to open a catering company, and not only do they hate to cook now, they also hate people.
Yeah, pretty much how it all works out. Yeah. I've done a few catering gigs, but I don't want to make my living that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I love to cook. The best part of it for me is that technical stuff is very, it's yes, no. I mean, you really have to, I've got a client that every time something happens, he goes, boy, that's weird. And I'm going, no, it's not weird. We just don't know why. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's like computers are really, there's always a really good reason why they're having a problem. Right? And taking that same logical, philosophical bent that I have, it works really well. For me, Christianity does make sense. I mean, Pascal, the mathematician, it's called Pascal's gambit or whatever it is, but he basically said, if I'm a Christian and I'm wrong, what have I lost? If I'm a non-Christian and I'm wrong, I've lost everything. So for me, Christianity works out both from a logical and a systematic thought basis that appeals to me. And that's the same thing on the technical side. You can always work through a computer problem. It may take you forever, but there's always an answer there somewhere. It can be ridiculously difficult to track down, but it's always there. Nice. So they sort of play off against each other sort of nicely that way.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is the lightning round. Are there any final thoughts, any lessons you want to share before we wrap this up?
One of the things that sort of bugs me about Christians in general is we believe, as Paul said, here in earth, great. I die, I go to heaven, even better. Okay. Why are Christians so afraid of death? Why are we so afraid of dying? It's silly. I mean, I understand that there's an unknown there, but if we believe what we say we believe, then we should be sweet. I actually said that once. We were in a thing.
God.
We were
not at a funeral, please, Doug.
No, it wasn't a funeral. By the way, I give great funeral. Just so you know, I've been asked to do several eulogies, and I give great eulogy. But I have people laughing until I have them crying. Every time.
Okay.
I'm good at it. But now this kid, we were in a meeting, and the guy was the guy who was leading was blah blah blah, and he was going, so you leave here and you walk out the door and you accidentally step in front of a truck. And I went, sweet. And he went, that is the first time anybody's ever said that, and you are completely correct.
Okay.
Well, it is. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, golly, no pain, no suffering, and you're with God. Come on, how bad is that? That's
Right.
not bad at all. So that's one of my big beefs with, in general, if we believe what we say we believe, we should not be so afraid of death. That's the whole point. But there you are.
There you go. All right.
One of the points.
As always, it is a delight to talk to you, even when we're not recording. But when other people get to share in this, woe on them, I guess. I don't know. But we had a good time. So thank you for joining me, as always.
I appreciate it. And I will see you. I will be up there in September, by the way.
Woohoo! Up in Cleveland in September, picking the right. Oh wow, that's not next month.
No.
Time has no meaning for me anymore.
Sorry,
Okay,
I know
cool.
it is pretty much It's my 50th high school reunion, a year and a half late.
Well, yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
But so,
because 2020 is just a big blank spot on the calendar. All right,
it didn't
great.
happen. 2020 didn't happen.
No.
Oh well.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see you. Thanks again.
All right, talk to you later.
Thanks for making time for us this week. To hear more of Technically Religious, visit our website, technicallyreligious.com, where you can find our other episodes, leave us ideas for future discussions, and connect us on social media.